Hi there, this is Erix. First of all, I want to thank all my regular listeners, or viewers, all three of you, for checking out my podcasts. I hope you've been enjoying them. I've certainly enjoyed making them for you. I also want to thank all my various guests who have sat down with me week after week to talk about The Simpsons, or The X-Files, or whatever. It's been a real pleasure to do this, and I'm looking forward to many more conversations with all of you and some new people along the way. Now, I want to reassure you that the sudden lapse in my regular release schedule is a temporary hiccup due entirely to an increased workload and lack of available time. Don't worry, I will eventually get back to a more regular release schedule. As of next week, The Simpsons Countdown will resume its weekly release schedule on Thursday evenings for the remainder of Season 3. And I've got 5 or 6 episodes left for Season 2 of Discovering the X-Files, which will be dropped sporadically over the next month or so. At that point, X-Files will go on a brief hiatus, probably like 5 or 6 weeks, and return in its 2-per-week schedule with Season 3. I've got some cool stuff planned for the Erix Antoine Network that will be dropping throughout the year, and I'm very excited about getting to work on all of that, so be on the lookout. In the meantime, just continue to support my stuff in the simplest of ways. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already, and click on the little bell so you get notified whenever a new video pops up. For the time being, my stuff is mostly audio-focused, so maybe you prefer to enjoy it on your favorite podcast platform. That's great. That's why I do this, so be sure to subscribe there. And for example, if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, you can give me a favorable rating and even write a brief review, hopefully a positive one. Doesn't have to be a big thing, just like, great podcast, I love Erix's sultry voice, keep up the good work, whatever you want. But these things help boost the podcast's profile, and that, along with spreading the word on social media, is really the best way to show your support. For now. As I said, I do have some cool things planned, and that includes more fun, let's call them interactive ways of showing your support. But I'll be letting you know all about that soon. Anyway, thanks for your patience. Yes, I've had to slow down these past few weeks, but I'm not going anywhere, so stick around. And now, sit back and enjoy your podcast.
What are you doing here?
I've come to ask for your help, Kyle.
Help with what?
Sophie. They've taken her into protective custody.
Let her go, Willa.
They're putting her in an iron cage as we speak, without bars, without windows. It'll kill her.
Sophie's been behind bars her entire life. Let her go home, Willa. She'll have the freedom she deserves.
Freedom to what? Be killed by poachers and have her hands cut off as souvenirs?
They promise she'll be in a preserve.
She's mine, Kyle. I won't let her go. Please, come on. We can find a place for her here. A private reserve. You know people.
That's against everything I stand for.
She's pregnant.
What?
Sophie's pregnant.
Well, what if she was? Is the baby gonna live out its life behind bars, too? Look, Willa, she doesn't belong to you. She's not your child. She belongs with other gorillas, not selling tickets for a zoo.
You won't help me?
No.
Hello, and welcome to Discovering the X-Files, the podcast in which a newbie takes a deep dive into the entirety of Chris Carter's universe, while longtime fans escort me on the journey, a perilous journey filled with government conspiracies or weird monsters every other week. I'm Erix Antoine, and today I'm joined by a friend of the podcast, Jared Kilbourne. We'll be discussing Fearful Symmetry, which originally aired on February 24th, 1995. In this episode, Mulder and Scully investigate the death of a construction worker and massive destruction of an avenue and its surroundings, all of which is linked to an elephant escaped from the local zoo. They come to discover something having to do with aliens abducting animals from that zoo and performing breeding experiments or something. Meanwhile, there's an animal rights organization that may also be involved, and a bunch of other stuff. It's a rather convoluted Monster of the Week episode, written by Steve De Jarnatt and directed by James Whitmore Jr., which also features Lance Guest in an important supporting role. In a moment, Jared and I are going to get into it. Stick around. So so as this episode started, this is kind of funny because in the cold open for the episode, and I had no idea what this episode was about. I didn't know anything about it, and I thought it was going to be about a janitor again, which I thought would have been really kind of funny. Like that's oh wow, so if it's about a janitor, bring Jared on. That's
janitor
his thing.
Exclusive.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's what we do. But no, it's it does. The cold open does involve a couple of janitors in an office building, experiencing some extraordinary phenomena. And once again, I want to point this out before we go any further. Once again, we have authentic Spanish.
Yes.
Talked about this early in the season, the first episode of the season, in Little Green Men. You had the character, also coincidentally enough, I guess he's a janitor over at the observatory in Puerto Rico, and the character's name's Jorge, and he speaks Spanish exclusively in the episode, his few lines that he has, but his Spanish is authentic. And so once again, listening to these two guys talk to each other,
right,
they were speaking Spanish, and they were speaking Spanish authentically, with not with an American accent, not they hadn't learned the script phonetically, like they were speaking their lines in Spanish. Both actors sounded authentically Hispanic. So again, this is something that I have to point out because it's actually rare, at least for me. Like it's rare even in shows today to see it.
Yeah.
Even shows I like, even shows like Breaking Bad, where you have all these characters who are supposed to be Mexican, but then as soon as they speak Spanish, it's disgusting. And I just don't get it. Like, I don't get it. Why is it that most shows or movies don't really make this effort? Because it shouldn't be that hard. I mean, most stuff is coming out of LA or New York, for fuck's sake. So it really shouldn't be so hard for central casting to find authentic Spanish speakers. I think they just don't care.
Right.
And so when I see a show like this take care to do that, even with a minor part, because like they're in the beginning of the episode and they're out of there within the first 10 or whatever minutes of the episode, and you never hear from them again, and they've only got a handful of lines, if that, but it matters to the people who made the show, and that matters to me.
Yeah, I have to agree that it took me a second. I thought I had, switched over my settings, but no, everything was perfectly fine. But yeah, I mean, it was appreciative that they were able to do that for those characters.
Yeah, I mean, it shows that the makers of the show really are taking care with authenticity, and that gives the whole series it elevates it slightly. From they're really taking care to make things feel authentic, to ground them in a reality that feels relatable, and it matters to them. They know that there are viewers, Spanish-speaking viewers, who care about details like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it seems like a simple thing, though. It seems like something that anybody should just do, but no, like they actually take the care to really go into it. And it's just one of the things that I really come to like about, that I really have come to appreciate about the show. They really are trying to ground it in a reality that feels authentic and relatable, and it's good. It's just great. That's what I think.
Okay. Yeah.
In general. Yeah.
Have to agree.
Yeah. So this episode has a great opening. Okay. It is a great cold open. No question. And you kind of need that. You kind of need, because it's coming on the heels of a spectacular two-parter.
Yeah, I agree. I love that opening. The janitors, they're just working, and then the Jumanji drums, as I started calling it,
Yeah.
was happening, and the ground started shaking, and like all chaos just kind of broke loose. The windows shattering, and then the car getting smashed, and like they really kind of just throw you in.
Yeah, it is it's a very eye-catching opening. The effects are done well. It's very, very effective as you have this invisible force kind of careening through the avenue and crushing the car and like all that stuff that's going on. You don't know what's going on, but it looks good. It looks very
it holds
gripping.
up even for today's standards. And
Yeah.
and it doesn't always do that, but in this case, you can really believe that there's like this invisible. Well, you find out it's an elephant, but you find out there's invisible force, and the practical effects of everything kind of worked, and the actors who were playing the construction workers and the one that got mowed down. Yeah, I believe like every minute. I was hooked. It had been a while since I had seen this episode, so I had kind of forgotten about that cold open, and I was like, well, what the hell?
Yeah, no, it was definitely an eye grabber, and the guy was like, yeah, this seems like something where if I were watching this when it first aired, here I am coming off an amazing two-part episode that definitely like raised the stakes as far as the storytelling and the cinematic qualities of the show, and I'm probably really invested, at least at that time, I'm really invested in like the mythology and all of that, and here we go with a Monster of the Week episode that, okay, to be fair, it's got a great opening, and maybe the episode that follows doesn't quite live up to the spectacular two-parter. However, you do need that eye grabber. You do need something where it's like, okay, yeah, I know you liked it last week, but don't worry, we've got something for you this week. Don't change the channel. Sit tight. This might get you. And so like that cold open grabs you. You're not gonna change the channel after the opening credits, and very elaborate. I mean, they got a real elephant. They're working with live animals.
Mm-hmm.
They're really pulling out all the stops. That was apparently I think the elephant's name is Bubbles, and which is interesting.
Yeah.
And they actually shot out on a road. They had to be very careful about animal exploitation laws or whatever. That you have to be careful with, obviously, and they used a real live elephant, and because they had to. I mean, this is 95, and it's television, so no CGI way. Budget. This is not. It's the real deal.
And that response to the truck driver when he just kind of stares at it, that close call of him smashing into it, and then I felt horrible because I don't know who brings their kids to a crime scene like that. So like you have all the kids just crying over the dead elephant, and I'm just kind of thinking like, what parent does this?
Yeah, it brings to mind. It makes me think about it. It's true. The empathy of children, where that's a very sort of that. Of course, kids love animals, and kids love animals like they're not afraid of elephants. These are gentle animals. They're not.
Beasts
right, and so there's nothing scary about them, and of course you do hear the kids crying in the background of the poor dying elephant in the middle of the road, and
broke my heart.
Yeah, it's a gripping opening. You don't know what's going on, of course. This is the X-Files. You don't quite know, but it is a gripping opening. And so the episode was written by Steve De Jarnatt, who is the writer and director of Miracle Mile. I don't know if you've seen that film.
No, I don't think I have.
Well, Miracle Mile is a great movie. It's from the 80s. It's like from, I don't know, 87, I think, or 88.
I'll have to write that down.
Miracle Mile. Yeah, he wrote and directed Miracle Mile, which it was a script that was kind of in development for a while. I think it was going to be it was pitched as a Twilight Zone movie.
Oh.
But then it ultimately was released as something else, and it's it's actually a really good movie. It's a cult movie, and I won't really spoil it. I'll just sort of give you the pitch, and it basically opens on Anthony Edwards answering a ringing payphone in the middle of the street, like outside of a diner, I think it is, or a gas station or something, and he answers the ringing payphone, and basically on the other end, it's somebody saying that they've pushed a button and there's going to be nuclear holocaust within hours of that. And so like he's got to race trying to figure out what's going on or escape the city or whatever it is. But it's a great setup. You know, like guy picks up a phone, a ringing telephone, and is told that the world's about to end. You know, and that's just a great setup. And it's a terrific the movie that follows that intriguing setup is very very powerful, very dramatic, very gripping. I really recommend it, Miracle Mile.
All right.
And so he wrote this episode, and this episode is, I would say that it fits in.
I had to call it a very special X-Files episode because, you know, and I get, you know, hopefully at least nowadays the zoos treat animals better, but man, they hammered that like message home a few times, and I could appreciate the message, but like every second that wasn't like Mulder and Scully investigating, it was, you know, like animals shouldn't be treated this way. And the leader of they had the WAO, which is, you know, their Greenpeace stand-in.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the acronym WAO reads out WOW, which is weird to me. It's definitely a very special episode of the X-Files on that count. It does fit in with Chris Carter's environmental and humanitarian concerns. A little bit too much, maybe, a little bit too on the nose. Which, again, I appreciate it, just like you. I appreciate the message. I appreciate all environmental messages, whether it's whether we're talking about something like this, or whether we're talking about Star Trek IV, or whether you know whatever we're talking about. Yes, there you go. Or whether we're talking about
environmental message.
Yes, Tiger King. But whatever we're talking about, I can appreciate it. But of course, there's a tendency to kind of lay it on a bit thick with the messaging aspect. It's effective because like that scene where Mulder and Scully are looking at the video footage of you know,
Ganesha, the elephant,
right, being mistreated by Meacham.
Ed Meacham.
Yeah, Ed Meacham, the guy that basically I guess he runs the zoo. And he, like, so yeah, right, because they come across, of course, the Greenpeace stand-in, the WAO, which is of course run by the Last Starfighter. He runs. He's running Greenpeace.
Michael Brody.
Yes. Michael Brody, or if you will. Well, he'll always be the Last Starfighter to me. But you can. I mean, all the. Jaws 4. Jaws the Revenge fans can refer to him as Michael Brody. They come across this person, and he is showing them the horrifying footage of Ganesha being terribly mistreated, right? Mm-hmm. And this is very effective. This is very effective in hammering home the message. And I also know that the Willa
Ambrose.
Willa Ambrose is also played by a familiar face, but I couldn't quite place her.
She's Jane Atkinson, and I looked at her IMDb. She was in Free Willy. She was actually the foster mom in Free Willy, and then she had a recurring role on House of Cards. So that's, you know, I kind of faintly remember Free Willy, and it's kind of funny that, you know, she's in that, and then she's in, you know, this episode, kind of tying together.
Yeah, well, this might have gotten her the gig. I mean, it would certainly. It's from around this time. This is 95.
Yeah, that was 2 years prior, like 93.
Oh, okay. So she was in Free Willy first. So clearly somebody saw Free Willy and it's like, you know, who we need to get for Willa Ambrose? We need to get the mom from Free Willy, who displayed humanitarian compassion and for animal rights and all of this. And she does a very good job here in the episode as well. I think that it's good to tell these kinds of stories. I want to make that clear. So don't get me wrong. I'm not the sort of person who just sort of scoffs at all quote unquote special episodes. I wish they would find ways to do it that are not so heavy-handed.
Yeah, a little bit more subtle.
Yeah, or just fine. Just there's, especially because you're working with science fiction, and when you're working with science fiction, it sort of opens the possibility. You can, it opens itself up a little bit to be a little more allegorical, a little bit more subtle, as you're saying, go in slightly different directions. But when you just sort of hit people over the head with a message, it makes the episode feel unnecessarily heavy, uh, in my opinion. Even though that's very much what they're doing with this story. It's very much a story of animal rights, of animal protection. It's ultimately a story of aliens. We'll get to that in a second, because here's the part where you've lost me, X-Files, as you sometimes do. But where I'm not sure anymore what exactly you're trying to say or what exactly this is. Yeah. But if I understand correctly, it is about aliens who are abducting animals from this zoo and impregnating them and then bringing them back. And I don't understand exactly what's happening.
Yeah, I watched it twice, and I was still kind of like, I thought because the gorilla Sophie was pregnant and then was brought back in, but we never see like the end result. We just see her in the same field as Ganesha. But yeah, we never find out that they took the baby or not. But yeah, as Mulder explained, it's supposed to be possibly a Noah's Ark type situation, because aliens care about, animals. And I'm just, it didn't feel like fully thought out. Like, and then when they would be returned, he said there was like a possible crack in the space time, or they're not doing it right. So they were just kind of, it felt like they were throwing stuff at the wall just to make it an X-Files episode. But it's like they had this, like, we got this animal rights script, but how can we use it to our advantage?
Yeah, well, that's actually, and it's a problem that we see with a lot of X-File episodes, where they have interesting ideas for stories. Mm-hmm. And maybe, because again, this is Steve De Jarnatt, and at this point, I don't know that he's a regular writer of the series. I don't think that he is. I don't
think so either.
It's one of the unique. Yeah, he's not one of like the head writers or anything. So clearly, and he has a pedigree. He's coming from TV and film already. Miracle Mile, Cherry 2000, tons of other movies. But the point is, so clearly, it seems to me like if this is a guy who's coming from film, maybe for them, the idea of this guy coming in and pitching a script to them was attractive. Oh, the director of Miracle Mile wants to do a script for us. Let's let him. And weirdly enough, he didn't direct the episode. But you look at it, and then it's like they take whatever the concept is, and clearly this is a humanitarian story. This is a story about animal rights, and they try to see how they can make that fit into the X-Files box. Not everything fits all the time, so obviously you have to start bringing in elements. And so in this particular case, they bring in the alien thing, and they just sort of shoehorn it in there in a way that I guess kind of makes sense, but it doesn't entirely make sense. And sure, it's a Noah's Ark situation. They're abducting these animals from the zoo. They're impregnating them, returning them, and obviously they're putting together a colony of animals to ensure the survival of the species. It seems like that would be like there is a noble goal. The aliens who are doing this want to preserve these animal species, and I think I got that,
Yeah.
I basically, that's what I gathered from the episode. I mean, it's not until the end that we even get like some kind of a half-hearted like explanation for the invisible creatures.
Right.
Okay. Unless I missed something, but if I'm understanding correctly, because I was wondering what that had to do with anything. Because you have first you have an invisible elephant that crushes a construction worker and rampaging through an avenue, and then later they find an actual elephant, Ganesha, on the road dying, and then you have or you have the situation of a tiger when when the Last Starfighter's compatriot goes into the zoo and
Canadian Daniel Craig, I was calling him.
That's actually really good. That's a good one. Canadian Daniel Craig. All right, yeah, that's not something. I didn't make that connection, but you're right. He does resemble Daniel Craig.
And
when he walks
call
in,
him a kid, and I'm just like, that guy is at least 30 years old.
Most likely, yes. Most likely he is. He sneaks into the zoo with a camera. I'm not sure what he's trying to do. I'm not sure what his intentions are. But anyway, he sneaks into the zoo. And at this point, like, they're trying to plant the red herring that maybe they have something to do with the animal disappearances, whatever it is, right? But so they go in there, and he gets mauled by an invisible tiger, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't understand what that is. Like, I don't get that part of it. It's like when the aliens abduct the animals, they leave an invisible entity that is a reproduction of the animal that they're abducting. I don't understand what's going on. Like, I don't get that, and maybe you can explain it to me if you understood something that I'm missing.
No, I couldn't understand it either. It kind of was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if there was an invisible animal? Because then it kind of just appears then, like, later down in the tunnel with the construction workers.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not quite sure exactly how it got there because it was still in the zoo. So usually, at least with the elephants, it was like running and then it just kind of appeared. The tiger seemed like it took like an extra day or two and then showed up and the timing was a little off with that too. So it's like, it felt like, okay, the guy was mauled by a tiger and then a day later, he's down in the tunnel and then they're hunting him. So they really were trying to go for something, but they couldn't explain it.
I think you hit it on the head when you said it was a cool idea. See, that's the thing. I think it's like they have these ideas. Wouldn't it be cool if, wouldn't it be cool if we had it's the concept of an invisible animal rampaging, but that's as far as they get with it, where the concept is cool, but then they figure that they don't need to explain it. Like the moment that they say, "Oh, it's aliens," that's it. That's it. Then we're supposed to get it. Like, oh, okay, so it's aliens.
Yeah.
So aliens, but why? But like who? Like what? And it fucks with the logic of the story because obviously they're trying to set it up in such a way so that when the last Starfighter is defeated by an iron crate, which is what I think happens to him,
yep.
He gets crushed by an iron crate in the warehouse. We are meant to believe that he was attacked by an invisible animal.
Yeah.
When that happens, that's what we think, right? We later find out that Meacham attacked him with a cattle prod, and wow, like that's quite a cattle prod, because we saw that dude fly across the room.
Yeah.
And that's but in any case, we later find out that Meacham did that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly he did. Like that is confessed, and that it was an accident. He didn't intend to kill him. He was he just
got in the way or trying to scare him off.
Right. It wasn't intentional. It was an accident and he ended up dead. Fair enough. But we also know that, well, I don't think that Meacham is responsible for the construction worker's death. Meacham did not maul Canadian Daniel Craig. So we know
why
that
would we?
Right, why would he? And we know that the invisible creatures do exist. The invisible animals, it's a thing. It's something that's happening, and it's never adequately explained. And it's so frustrating. This happens very often in X-Files. It's the one thing that just always gets on my tits about X-Files. Because it's one thing, if you're talking about a mythology episode where this is a big conspiracy and fair enough, they're still setting things up, and maybe when they eventually do pay them off, it's going to be a wet fart. I don't know yet. I haven't gotten there. But my point is, in the mythology episodes, you're kind of operating under the assumption that, the stuff that's not clear right now at some point is supposed to become clear.
Yeah.
Maybe not in this episode, maybe not in the next episode, but one day some of these mysteries, down the road, one day some of these mysteries are going to be explained. And so you kind of go with it, right? But when
Yeah.
you're talking about a self-contained story like this one, where, this is just one monster of the week sort of self-contained story, you have to pay it off in some way. And they often do. They often do, but they often don't. And this is one of the cases when they don't,
Where
and
they
as
definitely
usual,
don't.
yeah, they just don't. They leave it at it's aliens, and that's why, like, as you just said, oh, it's a cool idea, and it makes me wonder. Is it that Steve De Jarnatt like came in with the script, and maybe it had no supernatural elements in it, no like nothing to do with aliens or anything. It was just this cool story about something going on, and well, I mean, I guess the crux of the story is that alien beings are abducting animals. Okay, so probably that was always there. I'm sure that was always there. I think what was probably added in was the whole invisible animals thing. I think that was added in to spice it up, to because the episode needs more action,
Spice it up, and probably animal rights, keep budget, because if they just showed, if they showed the animals being beamed down or whatever, and then running through, that would have been fine. But they're like, no, we've only got, these animals for X amount of time, so let's make sure they're invisible. That will, kind of give them a cool idea, or even kind of give them the predator like camouflage, so at least we kind of have an idea. And that would have been better. But no, it's just they're invisible, but we don't know why.
Right, exactly. That's it. It's like, and again, your explanation is, from a technical standpoint, that's probably exactly why. They're like, look, we have a budget that only covers this much. Yes, we're allowed to use some live animals for certain things, but no, certainly not for action sequences or stunts. And we do want a little bit of action. We do want a guy to get mauled by a tiger, and we do want, a construction worker to get flattened by an elephant, and we do want this and we do want that, and we don't have the budget to really do it. So let's make the animals invisible. And if the reason was if that wasn't in the script, and then they said, well, we need to do it that way because we don't have a budget to actually do that, fair enough. But then you've got to sit down, my friend, and fucking write and fucking give me an explanation as to why that is. I'm sorry. Yeah, I know maybe you came up with it on the John last night, to start to figure out like how you're going to pull off these action sequences without using actual animals. And you came up with this brilliant idea. Well, let's just make the animals invisible then. Oh, wonderful. And it fits in with X-Files. And it's even something like cool that Mulder can make reference to, and people can roll their eyes at him as they do in all the episodes. So all of that, like, it works. It will work. But you've got to pay it off. You have to explain it to me. And I mean, maybe someone is listening to this right now and going, Jesus, you're thick. Didn't you pay attention? It's because of this and this and this. Fair enough. Please do write me an email.
Yeah.
Put a comment YouTube. Please don't use any 4-letter words, because that's not nice and you don't know me. But the thing is that ultimately, if please do explain it. But I for the life of me, I don't know what the invisible animals have to do with anything. Like, I don't get it.
I missed it too, and please let us know. But yeah, again, cool concept. They had to pad it out just a little bit more, and I get it. They have probably like a week or so to shoot, but had this been a feature, I'm sure or even a series today, we could have probably gotten it. This is why they were invisible, because we need to know. But they're just like, okay, well, throw this in, just do what we need to do, and the audience won't question it. Here we are 20, like almost 25 years later, and we're questioning what was your idea.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, I think a series today, first of all, series today have slightly bigger budgets. It's becoming much more. I'm pretty sure a series today might do the same thing, and they might even use some CGI. A series today, literally today, they might just say they won't need to come up with a solution for the animal mauling scenes. They'll just be like, fuck it, we'll use CGI. If they really want to do this episode, obviously, but yeah, it is kind of strange, and so the result is an episode that is intriguing. Obviously, as you're watching it, it's very intriguing, without being entirely satisfying.
Yeah.
You're sort of like,
Okay.
that was fine, and I get the message. And just in case I didn't get the message, we've got Mulder spelling it out in the final sort of monologue before the executive producer Chris Carter. It's fine. I need to reiterate that I appreciate what they're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm criticizing it, maybe a little, if I sound a bit harsh, it's only because I personally don't like, I don't like my messages delivered with a sledgehammer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessary for you to spell it out. You've already been pretty clear. You showed me the footage. It's an episode about aliens who are trying to rescue us, rescue the animals, trying to save us from ourselves, so to speak. All of that is perfectly clear. You've made it clear. You don't need that final monologue. Whatever.
Man saves man, or
Yeah, man saves man. A lot of intriguing little bits like that. That's the stuff I like about the episode. All the scenes with Sophie are great. They're great scenes.
Yeah.
They're compelling. She is not. It's not quite as. It's not quite as syrupy as like Congo. What was the chimp's name in Congo? Amy, I think.
Amy.
It was?
Amy.
Yes.
Yep. Bad monkey. Yeah.
Yes. It doesn't go there. It's again stays within a grounded sort of parameter, and sign language and all that stuff. It's great, compelling. They're not going for Congo. They're going more for like Gorillas in the Mist.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're going for something more naturalistic. And the end of the episode, you said like it opens. You see the dead elephant and it's the dying elephant, and it's a very sort of dramatic, sad scene.
Yeah.
But then the end of the episode is also extremely heartbreaking. When
they get you again.
Yeah, you have that whole thing. Of what did you say the actress' name? Jane Atkinson.
Jane Atkinson, yeah.
Right, yeah. Will Amber's like running across the field, like screaming no, and like that whole. And so it's pretty terrible. It's pretty horrible. And again, you have all of that, and you do not need a monologue button. Kind of fucks it up. It kind of fucks it up in the same way that the theatrical cut of Blade Runner fucks up the wonderful, poetic, beautiful ending of Blade Runner that is ruined by Harrison Ford's narration that basically spells out what the scene means.
We could have figured it out. They could have maybe cut a couple of the special part, or the message parts, and then given us a reason why the animals were invisible, and I would have been fine with that. And
exactly.
Cut the narration, because it always throws me off, because Mulder doesn't always do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's usually because occasionally they do have these sort of closing monologues that is presumably it's Mulder or Scully like writing their reports. So like we're hearing the report, basically. And usually what those things are, and it always seems to me to be a sort of postscript or something, notes, something that comes in later. I don't think they're ever in the original script. And what I think it usually is to provide some added exposition, some added explanation about what you just saw. Now, in some of these episodes, maybe that's sort of necessary because they're dealing with far out concepts. Mm-hmm. So it would have been like in this particular case, it would have been nice if the closing monologue gave some explanation as to why you had the invisible creatures or what that was and what that had to do with anything. But no, instead we have a reiteration of the message that the entire episode has been sort of shoving down our throats. And it would have been so much more eloquent to just sort of close on that sign outside the church, and just sort of close on that. And what you said a minute ago is like, we get it. And you know what? Maybe we don't get it. But I think it's more interesting. It's more interesting when you sort of leave it a little bit more a little bit more subtle in that case, so that the implications of that and the implications of why the episode is even called like Fearful Symmetry, which I think comes from I think it's from a Blake poem, I think.
Okay.
And about the relationship between man and nature or something like that. I could be totally off about that, but I think it has something to do with that. So if you already got these poetic sort of things going on, I think it's much more interesting and valuable to let the episode sort of work that way, and then you watch it. And although in this particular case, I don't think you miss that the episode is about cruelty to animals. I don't think you miss that at all. But any other implications, as far as like why the aliens are doing this, or the whole Noah's Ark scenario, or anything else, right? I think would be much more interesting to let us debate about that. Let the audience watch the episode and debate the motivation. Okay.
Yeah.
Not the mechanics of the story, not like why are there invisible creatures, because that's, I think, a fundamental thing that we should understand about the episode. But the motivation and the fact that they're saving us from ourselves and all of that stuff is something that could be left to the imagination, could be left open to debate, and it would make the episode more interesting.
I agree. So.
All right. So, is there anything else that we haven't discussed? That you want to bring
do
up?
have to appreciate the lone gunmen, or at least 2/3 of the lone gunmen showing up over a Zoom meeting, nonetheless, basically.
Oh yes, that's right. The Zoom call. I almost forgot the Zoom call between Mulder and the lone gunmen.
Byers and Frohickey.
Yes. Frohickey, of course, who continues to nurse his crush on Scully.
Oh my
God.
Tell her I'm buff.
Yeah, it's never not creepy, and I don't know. I think that's on purpose. But that's interesting.
Yeah, I can appreciate it, and of course Mulder, him and his witty references is David Copperfield, which didn't realize it was in 1983 that he made the Statue of Liberty disappear. I thought it was much more recent, or at least closer to that time than it really was.
No. Yeah, and it was, and I mean, I did not see it when it aired. I was alive, but I was very, very small. I did eventually see a rerun of it, but yes, it was actually the 5th special. It was The Magic of David Copperfield 5, The Statue of Liberty Disappears.
Oh
that's the title of the special, and I know that because I'm a huge fan of The Americans. And in the 4th season of that show has an episode that uses the exact same title.
Oh, that's
it's called that, and it sort of revolves around the airing of that special and the impact that it has on children of the Jennings family. But anyway, that's just me. I'm a huge Americans fan, so that was an important thing for me.
Willa Ambrose and Ed Meacham have been charged with manslaughter for the death of Kyle Lang. And though the courts will rule on this matter and justice will no doubt be served, the pall of a greater tragedy remains. The motives of the silent visitors who set these events in motion remain unclear. Could this be a judgment on a global rate of extinction that has risen to 1,000 times its natural rate in this century? An act of alien conservation of animals we are driving hard toward oblivion? And if so, might it follow that our own fate and existence could finally be dependent on the conservatorship of an extraterrestrial race? Or, in the simple words of a creature whose own future is uncertain, will man save man?
And that is that. I hope you enjoyed our discussion. And if you did enjoy it, there are many ways you can support the podcast, which is available on Anchor FM, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other platforms. You can subscribe. You can rate and or review it depending on what platform you're enjoying it on. And of course, you can share and spread the word on social media. Please do any or all of these things. Every little bit helps. Look for the Erix Antoine Network on Facebook or on YouTube. You can also follow me on Twitter at ErixAntoineNet and check out my film reviews on Letterboxd. I'm Erix Antoine. I'll be back in a week or so when my good friend Natalia Castro will be calling in from Colombia. We'll be discussing Dudkalm. At least I think that's how you pronounce it. I don't speak Norwegian. Anyway, please do stay tuned for that episode, and remember that the truth is out there. See you next time.